Let's bring it back to Scott Wapner, who will be here with a group of great investors to help us figure out what the market might do next. Scott. Okay, Carl. Thanks a lot. We're back with Tom Lee, Josh, Adam, and Courtney. We talked earlier, Tom, about keeping things general and looking at the background of this gathering that set a record. Let's talk about positioning now, where our fans want to think about putting their money. If we don't talk about tech, the deal of the year, we can't talk about who wins. It's clear that you've been a big supporter of the Mag 7. What do you think now? Tech might still work until the end of the year. But now that the election is over, I think investors will look for other places to put their money, hoping that the market is getting bigger. One place they might look is, where would animal spirits come back? Things that might be better off merged or where multiples are low. It's possible for PE to grow, which would lead people to small caps, financials, and the rest of the market. Well, that's exactly what Wolf Research is talking about tonight. Money being a big election winner. Also being talked about are area banks. Do you think that's a place to keep an eye on if former President Trump wins tonight and becomes president again? Yes, neighborhood banks are talked about a lot right now because they haven't turned down a lot of mergers and acquisitions this administration. There isn't much going on because these are so hard to get through. This is likely to get worse under Trump's presidency. So yes, that is something to keep an eye on. That's likely to start to take off here if Trump were elected. To keep the tech theme going, Adam, I'm going to read you something from Wedbush analyst Dan Ives that all of our fans know about. It's about what would happen in the tech space if Trump won. We think that a big change in tariffs and a tougher stance on China would have a big effect on the supply chain, he says. If Nvidia and Beijing fight back, it's possible that Apple and Tesla will be affected, which could slow down the ad revolution. Does he have a point or not? I don't think investors are focused on the election. I think they are focused on 5 or 6 growth themes. One of them is AI semis. If he means a short-term problem with the supply, he might be right. But I believe that if you're going to spend money, you should own compute and everything that goes with it. That's something you want to own tools for. Electricity, manufacturing, homes, building materials, and power are just a few of the themes that are already in place. I also think that people are ready to own those ideas. Also, I think the name Big Tech is a bit misleading because of how much money it makes. As long as you own it, you can keep up with the S&P. However, there are a lot of stocks in the group that are up or down a lot this year. Apple is up 75%, Dell is up 19%, FICO is up 73%, and GoDaddy is up 50%. I mean, there's a lot of spread out. Intel has dropped 55%. It was possible to pick stocks this year. It wasn't just the Mag 7 that worked. Since the S&P is so big, I think that's a bit of an excuse. However, I think stock picks had a great year in tech overall, given how spread out the returns were. Under a possible Harris administration, don't we have regulatory problems to think about, Josh? Big tech hasn't exactly been welcomed or liked by the Biden government. Google, Apple, Amazon, and Meta are all being targeted or threatened in some way. Yes, and they face those dangers all over the world, not just in the US. I think that extension will stay the same. You would think that the Republican candidate would help big business in a normal election. If Donald Trump wins, we'll probably be saying goodbye to the heads of the SEC and FTC. That looks like a likely answer. But Trump doesn't like Google very much. All over social media tonight, people are upset about how search seems to favor the Harris side. A lot of talk will be made about these policies and whether they're against Trump. That happened with Facebook before, when it was still called Facebook. In other words, don't think about it too much. As the needle swings towards Trump, look at what's already getting stronger. Bitcoin is up 5% and hit a high point in November. The Russell 2000 futures are up 2.5%, which is a big change since there isn't much trading going on there. Also, Courtney, I agree with everything you said. You can't say that regional banks will go up and not think that the Russell will work. It's pretty much the same trade. Tesla, on the other hand, is up 7% after hours. In the event that Trump wins, those are likely the things that will last. Now we have to talk about competition and breaking up platforms all over again if it goes to Harris. That will happen again next year. How about C? This is the one place I think you've really seen leadership break down, and this has been true all spring, summer, and fall. We know how good Broadcom has been and how good the Nvidia picture is. What is AMAT? Lam Research, where are you? Where is ASML? Is Samsung somewhere? On the surface, it's the weakest of what people think of as leadership. In this case, only 25% of semis are above their 200-day moving average. Between 4 and 6 weeks from now, semis will be in good season. When it comes to semis, I think it's better to fade a bounce than to chase it. I asked you before if Berkshire was going to sell Apple. Now I want to switch things around and ask you what you think about Nvidia being in the Dow based on what you've seen over the years. As you say, the fact that Intel was in the Dow before Nvidia, which makes up 7% of the S&P 500, wasn't included, may have made people think that the Dow doesn't really reflect the economy right now. You could say that it's just catching on to a high momentum play much too late, after it's already made its biggest gains. I was just looking at the market capitalization charts of Nvidia and Apple. Right now, they are tied. Nvidia will make about a third as much money as AMD next year and about half as much net income. This means that Nvidia stock is more expensive, but it's growing so much faster. At least, not in the short term. Just because a stock is in the Dow doesn't mean you should buy it. That's not a reason to buy at all, according to history. The Dow doesn't hold a lot of value. This is more about confirming its role in the new tech economy, which we kind of knew already. So once more, I don't think it's a sell the news, maybe it's a buy because Intel gave up. At this point though, it looks like the Dow is just trying to stay valuable. Okay, good stuff. After a lot of news from big tech companies, the Nasdaq had its worst week since September. Seema Modi has been keeping an eye on some of that. Hi, Seema. Hello, Carl. Semiconductors are trying to make up for the fact that their market value dropped by more than $360 billion last week. The biggest loser, Nvidia, is making up ground today as we wait for it to join the Dow on Friday. Nvidia has also asked SK Hynix, a South Korean company that makes memory chips, to speed up production of its next-generation memory product. It's seen as more evidence of how popular Nvidia's graphics processing units are. This comes at a time when more and more experts are worried about how the election will affect the chip industry as a whole. Bank of America is figuring out what would happen if Vice President Harris wins. A higher tax rate, according to BofA, would be bad for Nvidia and other companies like Texas Instruments and Qualcomm, which reports earnings this week. BofA says that the biggest problem that could happen is the possibility of taxes under former President Trump, which would be hard on the sector and make prices go up for memory and equipment players. To give you an idea, the chip sector did better than the S&P by 51% on average when Democrats were in charge, and by 38% when Republicans were. Tonight, we have two big earnings reports, one from NXP and one from Lattice Semiconductor. Tomorrow, Supermicro will give us an important business update. Guys, last trades? Josh, I'm staying with Uber. All right, Bren? It's also Uber. The market always gets things wrong. Okay, that's fine. Farmer Jim? Nvidia, press the easy button. Having fun. I'm not sure what to say. Meta sites and apps. Do not give up. Ok then.